petroglyph site at Velikata has many elements that can be labeled Northern Abstract, along with a few human figures and a variety of non-Indian motifs. At the top of the site is a panel with crosses, a form that I suggest may be a coffin. And I already lost my place. And the figure of a priest robed and carrying a cross with a characteristic missionary's hat. Nearby is a man apparently being accosted by a serpent, recalling a familiar story from the book of Genesis. Elsewhere are forms unfamiliar in native rock art, a table with a chalice perhaps, decorated panels or boxes that have, to me, a European feel, along with a historic human figure. As an aside, human figures in our area often have fingers and toes represented. Figures with L-shaped feet are thought to be depictions of men wearing boots or shoes. And the symbol of a bird. Overlooking the whole scene is a prominent cross, a familiar Spanish convention of placing the cross at the top to Christianize a pagan site. Mission de Nuestra Señora de Guadalupe del Norte, 35 kilometers north of here, was the last mission in northern Baja California, founded by the Dominicans in 1834 at a site marked by a notable pictograph rock. This may have been the Kumeyaay pictograph panel on the low ridge overlooking the mission, destroyed in the 1970s when the boulders were blasted to make riprap for flood control. The panel contains a large Christian cross. The mission was abandoned after a native uprising in 1840, and it is an open question whether the cross represents veneration or the incorporation of a hated symbol to aid efforts to remove the Spaniards from the valley. Farther north, a large painted panel at San Jose de Tecate has robed figures that may represent priests, and a figure holding an orb and a cross. The horns or antennae are characteristic symbols of supernatural power. Along the El Camino Real north of San Diego, an unusual petroglyph panel, now destroyed after being documented to, quote, mitigate, unquote, impacts of an industrial park, depicted two large quadrupeds. When first recorded, the drawings were attributed to possibly children or undocumented workers employed in nearby agricultural fields. True story, that's actually what the archaeologists suggested. But examination of the figures showed they were old and indurated. I am of the opinion that they represent mules based on the prominent necks and the characteristic position of the ears. The petroglyphs overlook a route identified as part of the El Camino Real, and men and animals passing by would have been fully visible from the panel. Close to Mission San Diego itself, a painted panel in Mission Trails Park is done in native-style paint with distinctly non-native designs. The circular outline bordered by triangles is not a local Aboriginal concept, and the elements include a possible catamaran and what appears to be a bishop's mitre topped by a cross. The site is 7 kilometers from the mission. A petroglyph site of broadly similar character is located in Laguna Canyon in Orange County. Here a panel of indeterminate elements has never been properly recorded, and the two known drawings are wildly inaccurate. But it includes a Spanish-style cross and a digitate anthropomorph, that's the kind with fingers and toes represented. Combining non-native and native components in a collection of unique elements. This site and the Mission Trails painting are consistent with authorship by a neophyte incorporating non-native elements into a traditional method of making rock art. But of course, there is no way to certainly connect the sites with the missions. The well-known Four Horsemen panel, painted by a Chumash artist in the Santa Monica Mountains, is frequently cited for its possible connection to El Camino Real. The procession is finely painted with attention to details such as reins and hats, and it is located close to the route north, followed by Portola and Father Sarah, on their journeys from San Diego to missions in Alta California. Equestrian figures are a relatively frequent occurrence in northern Baja California and southern California rock art, and they often are very simple and rudimentary, as this example from the Cumiai site of Valle Seco. Valle Seco has other examples, though, as this fine little drawing of a man riding a mule, again identified by characteristic body shape and ears, and almost certainly not a horse. Also not a horse is this animal from Valle Seco. In this miniature painting, a man rides what appears to be a bobcat, uniquely identified by pointed ears, the short bobtail, and the ball feet that serve to identify felines in rock art styles throughout North American West. Here we have the foreign concept of equestrianism combined with an animal of ritual importance, as if the rider were exercising his control over supernatural power. Schematic, almost abstract equestrian figures, one of which appears to be wearing a hat, are found at a site at Puerto de San Carlos, a pass through the desert mountains into the interior valleys of what is today Riverside County. The Anza expedition in 1775 camped at this site on December 26th, and the pictographs are widely thought to be a Cahuilla record of this historic event. The panel also includes several crosses. Another well-known horse and rider site at Piedras Grandes and Anza Borrego Desert State Park is also close to the route of the Anza expedition and has also been interpreted as a possible record of their passage through the California desert. It is well documented that the Spanish priests employed native artists in the decoration of the missions, using both local natural pigments and imported mineral pigments from Europe and elsewhere. These decorations, from pieces such as this painted ceiling medallions shown here at Mission Santa Barbara, to elaborate murals like those at Mission Dolores and San Miguel Archangel farther north, generally employ European design conventions or the personal creations of individual priests, rather than native elements. Recently, however, researcher Stephen O'Neill has reported on Native American pictographs on interior walls here at Mission San Juan Capistrano. One of these is a large oval element and what appears to be a schematic, roughly painted equestrian figure, here better revealed with D-stretch. The equestrian figure is reminiscent of the figures at Puerto de San Carlos, especially when portions damaged by exfoliation are creatively restored, but minimally, but still restored. A second figure presents a real challenge. In this example, Stephen sees what may be a drawing of a pelican. Another colleague, Steve Frears, is not so sure. You can see there is not much to work with here. And a basic D-stretch processing shows black pigment along with a lot of other dark coloration. I've abbreviated the steps here, but using several D-stretch algorithms, it is possible to narrow things down to actual remnants of black pigment. It is easy to see a bird when you draw a yellow line around it. And your results may vary, but I tend to agree with Stephen. Long double-line bill, rounded head and a long neck, boat-shaped body, a tail area which is somewhat confused with black coloration in the plaster, and a very sparse indication of legs. Even if you don't agree, it is a remnant of some sort of design, and one of our very few examples of Native American rock art brought directly into the Spanish mission setting. And interpretation as a pelican is not far-fetched, since we know that pelicans had ritual importance as attested to by hundreds of pelican stones found in coastal and island sites from northern San Diego County to Point Conception. In two final examples, the personal expression of rock art is brought into the mission setting. This tile from Mission Santa Barbara bears a classic Native American style of digitate anthropomorph, poked into the clay, as the label says, by an unknown Chumash worker. And from La Purissima comes a similar example with a Chumash mandala design incised into a clay tile found at that mission. These two examples remind us that the people making these designs were individuals with personal aspirations and individual responses to their situations. We cannot know if they worked voluntarily or were coerced, but in these tiles they made their own small impressions on the mission establishment and on our perceptions of the past. Thank you.